everybody. My name is Heather, and I'm here to welcome you to Two Brothers Talk Sports, featuring Chad Pelletier and Jay Wheatley. They're here to give you all sports, completely uncut, from the fan point of view, the stuff you can't hear on television.
Alright guys, I'm Chad Pelletier, and like you heard, we're getting into the way that you guys would in your living rooms, like we're going to be in your living rooms or on your phones or wherever you're going to take us to watch this video. So please smash that like button, tell your friends, subscribe to our channel, and with me also is my brother, Jay.
What's up, fellas and everything? I'm Jay, the sports bird, and I'm my brother said here and everything. We are coming to you in your living room. We are going to tell you like it is. We're going to sit there. We're going to bring it. I tell you right now, me and him, we're brothers and everything. We might even take it to the street outside. Who knows? But I hope you guys enjoy the show. We're here to have fun, a good time. If you like and everything, and you subscribe and you see the show, if there's something maybe I missed, if you want to catch up on things, feel free. We're here to talk football, boxing, hockey, whatever, especially whenever we get into those sports. But hey, in the meantime, sit back and relax and take it away.
And don't be afraid to put the comments below in any of the subjects that we're talking about.
Especially if you're a Florida fan.
We'll talk about that later. But we're going to go ahead with our first topic of the night.
And just real quick, my name's Heather Pelletier. I'll be your voice behind the camera and the moderator to make sure these guys stay on topic, on time, and they know when to shut the hell up. Tonight we're going to start with a review of this past week's college championship games. I think we're going to kick it off with the Pac-12 championship. The Ducks versus the Trojans. Chad?
Alright, the Ducks versus the Trojans. We had a 24-31 Oregon Duck victory over the Trojans. And for the Trojans, I must say it started out atrocious. First play of the game from the Trojans, they throw a pick, and Oregon takes it right down the field and scores, and Oregon never looked back. It was all Oregon this whole game. Don't let the score fool you. The Trojans were just not in this game at all.
Usually atrocious about all that and everything is the fact that you got a 3-2 Oregon team against a 5-0, number 13 in the country USC team. Obviously, with what's gone on in the season this year and everything, but I tell you right now, that's kind of atrocious if you ask me. I mean, because really, if this would have been a regular season, would maybe either one of these teams even been in the Pac-12 championship game? I mean, you had so many games canceled in the Pac-12 just alone. I mean, was Oregon that good in the North, and USC that good in the South, or would have, if you had a full season, what would have happened?
Yeah, this season was crazy. I'm glad that the NCAA decided that the Pac-12 was disqualified for the championship playoff, which is going to lead us into our when we discuss the other guys that decided to start in November, who have a team in the playoffs that should not be in the playoffs, in my opinion. And well, pretty much in mine and my brother's both opinion on this one. So yeah, that's all we got to say really for this Pac-12 garbage game. It was garbage. Unless you're an Oregon fan.
And congratulations to the Ducks and everything. Not taking nothing away from you. It's not your fault that COVID and your committee and your conference and everything wouldn't allow you to start on time. But I'm really with my brother on this one. And I'm glad that in the way Oregon did win this, unlike to the next conference we will get to in just a few minutes with that team that didn't finish undefeated. Because had Oregon not won this and USC won it, you'd have another team undefeated at 6-0 and only played 6 games in another conference, a major conference.
But like I said, the NCAA already declared that Pac-12 was disqualified for the championship.
Then why didn't they get disqualified? Well, why didn't they get disqualified the Ohio State thing?
That's I don't get. There was talk. Now, okay, we'll talk about it. There was talk with the NCAA that they were going to go ahead, and because Ohio State didn't play enough games, that they were deciding on whether or not to allow Ohio State to be included in the college playoffs, football playoffs. My opinion, no, Ohio State, you did not play enough games. You played one ranked team this whole season, and to decide that you guys are number 2 in the nation, come on, for real. Who did you play? Who did you beat? You beat who? Indiana?
You beat Indiana, and I'll tell you right now, if they would have had a couple more minutes on that game clock and everything, I think Indiana would win that game. But I think once again, getting back to this game, I'm glad that Oregon did win it, so we don't have this conversation and everything. And once again, just get the Pac-12 out, because all in all, from top to bottom, I think the Pac-12 is just garbage. I'm glad that they're not involved, and good luck in whatever bowl you guys go to, because sure as heck ain't going to be the Rose Bowl, because it's not being played in Pasadena this year.
All right, so moving on to the next championship, we have the Big 12 championship game between the Sooners and the Cyclones. Jay, why don't you lead us off on this one?
I'm going to tell you right now and everything, I'm going to give a lot of credit to the Iowa State Cyclones here. Normally 9 times out of 10, Oklahoma is your big dog in the Big 12 conference and everything. And obviously Oklahoma once again proved that this year. But I tell you right now, Cyclones, they're an up-and-coming team. And I like what I'm seeing out of Iowa State. I think if they would have had just a little bit more talent on that team and a little bit more depth like Oklahoma has, I think Oklahoma would have lost this game.
I mean, this is an Iowa State team that did beat Oklahoma during the regular season. So, I mean, I don't think it's a question of depth. I think it's just a question of the fact that Oklahoma has played in so many championship games that they knew what it takes. That whole team, that even the coaches know what it takes to be a champion, to play in the championship game. Whereas Iowa State, you might see them once every 6-7 years maybe play in a championship game. They were just happy to be there. They should, to me, they were the team really to beat there because they had a better record. They were higher ranked.
But probably through their inexperience of the lack of the big games and the big times that they've been in big games, unlike Oklahoma, probably the pressure got to them just a little bit, you think?
I think so. I mean, it's, like I said,
because total yards and everything like there, well, Iowa State, 435, Oklahoma, 392. Basically right there, I mean, they had more, total yards and everything. I mean, they were ready for this game. I just think, like you said and everything, I think the bigger game and everything like that, more experienced Oklahoma in these big games, I think that's what kind of hurt them in the long run.
Yeah, but definitely. And Oklahoma is a team to mention that because they won their championship game, they played more games than Ohio State. And this is going to get us when we start talking about the college football playoffs. Is a team that should have probably been thrown into the college football playoffs. So we'll get into that in a little bit.
All right. Next, we're going to move on to the Big 10 championship game. The Wildcats versus the Buckeyes. Chad, you want to take it on this one?
Okay. This game, I thought at the beginning, Northwestern had the game plan to where we wouldn't even be talking about Ohio State in the college football playoffs. They started the game off tough. They started the game off the right way. But at some point down the line, they took their foot off the gas and found the break. Kind of like the people in our home city in Tampa, how they drive, they see the green light, they take their foot off the gas, they hit the brake. That's what Northwestern did here. Once they got up 10-0, they thought they had the game won and let Ohio State. One of the worst games for a Heisman hopeful.
What was it, 2 interceptions?
3 interceptions.
2 or 3 interceptions and everything. Really, I tell you right now, Northwestern had a great game plan, I thought, for Justin Fields. They shut him down. They took him out of his rhythm. I will gotta say this: I don't really know if Northwestern took their foot off the gas pedal too much. I think as a team and everything, I really do think Ohio State does have the better athletes. Is a little bit more in depth. I just think really all in all, when this game came down to it and everything, Northwestern, they just didn't have the manpower to keep up with Ohio State. They did not need to get into a shootout. They kept it low scoring. Had you told me Saturday at 12 o'clock and everything that Ohio State would have scored 22 points and still won, I would have told you you're fucking lying. But you know what? I tell you right now, either way, Northwestern, once again, they came to play, they came to fight. And Ohio State, I'm sorry, 6-0 and everything. I mean, you beat Indiana. Had you had 2 more minutes, they had 2 more minutes on that clock, Indiana would have beat your ass at the horseshoe. And then you almost got beat by a Northwestern team who really, you were favored with by 21 points. What's wrong with the committee here? Why is Ohio State always, every year, shoved up our ass throughout the entire country? Well, they don't play nobody.
And from what I hear, it had a lot to do with recruiting. Okay, but I mean, you can't tell me that Oklahoma doesn't get good recruiting. You mean tell Michigan State and all that. Why is it every year it's just Ohio State? Who do they play? What? Akron?
Ohio. Why don't you play some of the big boys in your own state? Why don't you play the Bearcats, Ohio State? Why don't you go on the road and play, I don't know, USC out there in Pasadena, or maybe play a home game against Notre Dame, back-to-back years, or maybe why don't you come down to the South and play some SEC teams, or maybe a Clemson team. Oh, that's right, you're going to be playing Clemson real soon, and you're going to get your Buckeye ass whipped.
Oh, I agree with that one.
All right, guys, we got our 2 biggies left. I'm going to have Chad take the lead on this. He is a diehard Notre Dame fan. Our ACC championship game, the Clemson Tigers against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Chad, walk us through what happened in this game and what happened with the Irish. What's going on here?
Obviously, due to the fact that Clemson had a game the week before, I'm not a big fan of resting a week when you got a big game to play coming up next, and I really think the rest hurt Notre Dame. It killed their momentum, because if you watch every game this season that they didn't have a break between, they had a good rhythm. They were a strong football team. They came into this game undefeated.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the Notre Dame Fighting Irish did beat Clemson already earlier in the season.
And granted, we did beat Clemson when Clemson was number 1, and they came in the South Bend number 1, and we beat them. It was a shootout. Great game. Probably one of the better games this whole season that you're going to see.
I'll agree with that.
But I'm going to also say what my brother's been saying too is Clemson was missing its key player, and that's Trevor Lawrence. And I mean, until I really watched this game and saw Trevor Lawrence really how much of a difference he really makes on that team, I think that the outcome, I think it would have been a shootout either way. And up in South
Bend. Here's what I found online.
It's a nice note. I have my phone off, but look at who,
but Clemson came out, had a great defensive package, because really, what beat Clemson in South Bend was they couldn't contain Ian Book. Even though Ian Book still threw for, how many yards did he throw for in that game?
Ian Book threw for over 220 yards.
Yeah, so he still got his yardage in the air, but he didn't get his yards with his feet like he did. Clemson just came out with a brilliant scheme, did not let him run around out of the pocket, get out of the pocket, kept Ian Book uncomfortable, made him miss a lot of throws that he would normally make. And that's a good adjustment. That's a team that, okay, you beat us once, we are going to come back out, and if you try the same scheme against us, we're expecting that. Tommy Rees, you need to become more creative, buddy. I loved you as a quarterback for Notre Dame when you were a Notre Dame quarterback, but as offensive coordinator, you need to adjust, and that's what happened. Notre Dame did not adjust to the Clemson defense.
I'm gonna say right now, here's one of the biggest difference in the game. Total yardage: Clemson 541, Notre Dame 263. Notre Dame only got 44 yards rushing. Now, I didn't really watch a whole lot of the first game and everything, and I really didn't pay attention to this second game. There were 6 to 7 players out for Clemson last time, and I tell you right now, granted, hats off. Irish did what they had to do. They went in there, they beat Clemson 47-40, and that was the first week, I think, of November. Really, I just got to say, I wasn't surprised that Clemson won this game, because it's very hard to beat a team 2 times in the same year. NFL is hard, especially in college football. It's even harder. We've seen that throughout the years of Florida State having to play rematches. I think the biggest thing that hurt Notre Dame in this is, like you said, they just cannot sit there and find a running game. And I think, Ian Book, as phenomenal as a quarterback as he is, he threw for 220 yards, no touchdowns, but he did not turn the ball over. But the problem with Notre Dame, I think what it was Clemson was able to keep them off the field. They sat there and they got into him, and I think Trevor Lawrence was a big key and a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys, we're going to move into our last but not least championship game. Gators versus the Alabama Roll Tide. Jay, I know you're a huge Gators fan, die hard, so
Still supporting.
I'd like you to walk us through this game from your point of view and what happened here. Why couldn't the Gators bring it home for us?
Well, the main thing is, like all year long, they just couldn't stop the run. They couldn't stop, Alabama. They shot themselves in the foot on defense. And, as much as Kyle Trask, is a heck of a quarterback, and we average 46, 47 points a game, I mean, when you shoot yourself in the foot against a team like Alabama that's as good as Alabama, I mean, you're not going to win. I think a couple of key third downs where they got penalties, hands to the face on one, they kept the drive alive. False start, they kept the drive alive. And then on another third down where we intercepted the ball, and then the guy runs it back, and then he fumbles, and Alabama gets the ball. Against a good team like Alabama, you got to play almost a perfect, flawless game, and that's the problem with the Gators. They did not do that. I think at halftime they regrouped a little bit, because this game could have gotten real ugly, and it did, but instead of tucking their tails between their legs like most teams do against Alabama, I'm proud of the fact that they clawed their way back, they fought their way back, but I just think had we not shot ourselves in the foot early on, I think you see a different outcome in Atlanta on Saturday night.
Well, so then my question would be, if the Gators had been 100% on point on their game, do you think they had the talent and what it takes to beat Alabama this game?
I think, Florida has the talent to probably beat anybody in the nation. And I tell you, I think had they been playing anybody but Alabama on Saturday night, and that goes for probably Clemson, Notre Dame, Oklahoma. I think if they would have been playing anybody else but Alabama, I think Florida would have won the game. Just because.
So you think they had a disadvantage going in just by the fact that they were playing Alabama?
No, I don't think they had a disadvantage. I just think, Alabama, I mean, we were just, Alabama's been running over everybody.
Yeah.
And, I'm surprised that really we were able to, kind of hang in with Alabama like we did.
I mean, it's not bad. It was a 52-46. That's a pretty close game as far as I'm concerned.
And we were favored to lose by 18 points. So, I mean, like I said, once again, the thing with this game that also hurt us a lot was, once again, rushing right there. I mean, you just look at it. Rushing yards, 54 yards, Alabama almost 200. Turnovers also hurt us. We had 2 turnovers. Alabama had the 1. You can't sit there and beat Alabama whenever you only rush for 54 yards. I mean, no offense, no matter who you are, I don't care. Even Tebow had problems with them whenever Tebow was our quarterback. Danny Warfel had problems with Danny Warfel was our quarterback. You got to expect, when you play Alabama, you just can't give them a free opportunity. And I think that's what the Gators really did. I think we were at a disadvantage so much. I just think that, unfortunately, we just haven't, all year long, we just haven't been able to stop a whole lot of people on defense. Look at the Kentucky game.
Chad, do you have anything you'd like to add in here regarding that game?
Well, when it comes to Alabama's one of those teams you can't give them a 20-point lead at first and expect to find a way to climb back, because the fact that Nick Saban will turn his team in from a fast-scoring team to, okay, we'll just run the ball, which is going to cause the clock to keep running, and just run the clock out. So we're going to score 20 points over you, and if you seem like you're going to come back, okay, then we're going to keep our high-flying offense. But if you seem like you're starting to come back too much, they're just going to use their run game, and they've got too much talent in the run game. They got, 2-3 running backs they could...
They've got 3 players in the top 5 of Heisman Trophy candidates right now. They've got the quarterback, the running back, and their wide receiver. I think the biggest thing that people get with Alabama, the biggest misconception they get, they assume Alabama is nothing but a running team.
No,
Alabama can beat you also in the air too. They can get into a shootout with you, and that's what they proved on Saturday night. We can get into a shootout with you, but they also done that against Clemson before, LSU before. Alabama's a good team, and like you said, you just can't get down. You can't get down by 20 points.
All right. We're going to take a quick break here, guys, and when we come back, I'd like to get your guys' views on the Heisman Trophy and the players in the running for that one. Alright guys, thank you for sticking around. We're back with Chad and Jay with Two Brothers Talk Sports. We just reviewed the championship games for college ball. Now, Chad, I'm going to start with you. I'd like to get some of your predictions for this year's Heisman Trophy and what's leading you to lean that way.
Okay, first of all, we got to understand what the Heisman Trophy is about. And the Heisman Trophy is supposed to go to the player that makes the hugest difference on his team. A player that really, if you don't have him in the game, you're more than likely going to lose. And from what I've seen throughout this season, and I guess it's been a proven fact. He's probably one of the best players in college football, hands down, 100% endorsed by his coach. And I'm going to go with Trevor Lawrence at Clemson. I mean, I was riding the Ian book, because I'm a Notre Dame fan, and I was along with my brother saying, Kyle Trask, and even Matt Jones in Alabama. I thought those for quarterbacks were your top in the league. But I mean, Trevor Lawrence, if you ask about a player that can does Florida have a person who could step up if Kyle Trask goes down? I'm pretty sure they do. Does Alabama have? Alabama always has a backup.
Yeah, third stringers that can back up their backups.
Yeah. So I mean, when it comes down to it, we saw what happened when Clemson lost Trevor Lawrence and played Notre Dame, and it came out on a loss. Then you put Trevor Lawrence in the ACC championship game against Notre Dame, and the man runs for almost 70, 80 yards.
Almost has 500 yards total yards.
And his passing, you couldn't stop the kid. The kid is a difference maker. He is the heart and soul of his team, and he is what I say that the Heisman was originally about in the first place. But here lately, it's become kind of a joke. It's kind of gone to the most popular and what school is the most talked about. Oklahoma has been lucky; they've gotten a couple of their guys back to back Heisman. But I mean, they were out there doing what they're supposed to do. They were the heart and soul of their team.
Yeah, I mean,
So I mean, the NCAA started getting it right, but I think this year they're more likely going to give it to an Alabama person.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I disagree. I think high and mighty that Trevor Lawrence should be hands down your Heisman Trophy winner.
I mean, I like Trevor Lawrence. I think what he's done at Clemson, especially over the last couple of years, he's beaten Alabama, he's beaten Ohio State, he's got a couple national championships. You saw what happened when he was obviously not playing for the team and everything. They didn't miss a whole lot without him and everything, but they still had a loss, and it came at Notre Dame's. I think this kid does mean an awful lot to his team. I think he's a good quarterback. I think he's one of the best quarterbacks I've seen play college football, and I've seen my fair share of quarterbacks. I think what hurts Trevor Lawrence is the fact that he did have those couple weeks off. I think that's what's going to kind of hurt him a little bit. I'm not really sure, of course, the committee what they say. I'm going to sit there and say he's definitely on my top 4. Mac Jones, I'm going to have to sit there and say right now, I mean, even though I don't want to because I'm a Gators fan, but I think Mac Jones, because he has led his team undefeated. He's got the numbers and everything like that. He's played all the games. I'm going to probably have to go with Mac Jones, and that's not just saying, I'm not saying that because it's just Alabama. Kyle Trask is the heart and soul of the Gators, but, this kid right now has got a chance to maybe lead his team to a national championship, and look what he's done also.
So it would be fair to say that your choice for the Heisman Trophy is not based on prejudice or, how should I say, biased, because when it comes down to it, you're a Florida Gators fan and not really a big fan of the Alabama Roll Tide.
No, I'm not a fan of Alabama and everything like that. I mean, I'm a fan of them, obviously, because they're in the SEC, but I'm not a big fan. I think what hurt Kyle Trask most of all, more than anything, was the loss to LSU. And the sad thing for Kyle Trask, what also really hurts him too, is it's not so much his fault. I mean, when you're throwing for over 400 yards and getting 5-6 touchdowns a game, it's not your fault that your defense can't stop a dead horse on any given Sunday. But unfortunately, with the 3 losses and the way they came, even though it wasn't Trask's fault, unfortunately that the committee's going to look at the wins also.
But here's my thing. Trevor Lawrence was a runner-up for the Heisman Trophy last year. Okay? And he's been there for 3 years.
Right.
And he's been in the Heisman Trophy talk for the past 3 years. And here it is, Matt Jones. This is his first year. This is Kyle Trask's first year. Second year.
For Kyle Trask,
yeah. Okay? So I would give Kyle Trask maybe a little bit more leeway over Matt Jones. Matt Jones, you're on a highly talented team that I truly believe my 4-year-old son could go and throw football for Alabama and be
very
in
true.
the
Bella the dog over there.
Yeah, in the Heisman Trophy. I think that what the committee should do is, okay, due to the fact that this is such a weird season with this whole COVID thing, and I think that they should really look at the fact that here it is. Look at the past play of somebody like Trevor Lawrence. If he's been talked about that much since his first year starting to now, I think it's high time that you go, okay, Matt Jones, you're going to be in Alabama for another couple of years. You're going to get your shot. You're more likely going to get a Heisman Trophy at one point in your college career. Kyle Trask, I think he's on his way. I think if he stays and plays one more season, I think we're going to see him with a Heisman Trophy.
Jones is a senior. He's coming out.
But
I mean, I don't need to cut you off on that whenever it comes to the Heisman Trophy and everything. But I mean, is the Heisman Trophy? It's based on what's the best player of this year. I mean, I understand. That's where I'm saying. That's where Trevor Lawrence. Yeah, you've done great for the past 3 years. And I mean, Heisman runner-up the last 2 years. But it's about what he did this year. I mean.
And look what he's done this year.
Look
the numbers he's put up this year every game.
I mean, numbers and everything. He's got 2,753 yards, 22 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Trask has 4,125 yards, 43 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Jones, 3,739 yards, 32 touchdowns, 4 interceptions.
Now, did you catch any of Trevor Lawrence's rushing touchdowns?
No, because they don't show that on my...
They didn't show... Okay, because Trevor Lawrence, he doesn't just do it with his arm, he does it with his feet.
Yeah, he's a little bit more of a dual threat than what Kyle Trask is. And we know Mac Jones, he's not a dual threat whatsoever.
No. So, I mean, at the end of the day, if we're going to go by numbers, and the fact that, okay, they even still kept Justin Fields in the talk.
Sure as heck wasn't those 3 or 4 interceptions he had the other day.
He was, but before, at the beginning of the day, he was still in the talk as a runner for the Heisman Trophy.
All right,
Justin Fields. And here's a guy who's only played 6 games this season, and
look what he did last year.
And you're going to hand him over, pretty much, the Heisman Trophy. Had he gone and played more games and not had a horrible game, in the championship game. Here's a kid that should not have had a 3-interception game as a Heisman Trophy candidate,
in your conference
championship. It just shows that does he have trouble in the big games?
I mean, look how he struggled against Indiana. And Indiana, compared to Ohio State, even though they were number 12 in the nation at the time when they played, mediocre at best.
Yeah, and then look how he did in the college football playoffs last year.
Yeah,
Justin Fields. He's got trouble in the big games. I really think that the committee is gonna have to, with this weird year, if they're gonna look at it the way that they were gonna look at it, is okay. Trevor Lawrence wasn't out because of injury. He was out due to the fact with the whole COVID thing.
Somebody sneezed.
And he didn't test positive. The problem was that he was around the person who tested positive. That's the worst part that of all of this whole thing. He did not test positive, but they weren't sure when that game was coming up if he was going to show symptoms either sometime before, so they had to go ahead and keep him on the sideline to where he didn't mix and mingle with any of the Notre Dame team. So I don't think that the NCAA committee, the Heisman Trophy committee, should look at that and go, well, that's what hurt him right there, is the game that, look at what the kid has done consistently when he's on that field. Consistently. It's all about consistency. Matt Jones was not quite consistent this year.
Consistency, though. Let's talk about look at what Kyle Trask has done since he took over for Franks last year. That Florida offense has clicked in the 2 years that Trask has been there, just like Trevor Lawrence. Consistency. I mean, in just 10 games last year, 9 10 games, 7 or whatever they started in. I mean, he almost had 30 touchdowns and only 6 interceptions. I mean, Trask is a dang good quarterback. I just think, like I said, once again, what hurts Trask's ability to maybe win the Heisman this year is the fact that he had a shitty defense. Plain and simple. The Gators' defense was shit. In the story. S-H-I-T. Shit.
All right.
And Bella wants to join us.
Bella, the Buccaneer dog.
Moving on to what I'm sure is in everybody's minds now, the upcoming bowl games.
Except for the Potato Bowl.
There are a number of bowl games, obviously. We have a couple that are really big and on people's minds, and some we want to cover ourselves. But let's kick this off by starting with the Rose Bowl, Alabama versus Notre Dame. Chad, you want to take us on this one?
Here is a big game, and quite frankly, this is a game that even though, and I'm going to say as a Notre Dame fan, even though Brian Kelly has kept Notre Dame year after year after year in the talk for the national championship, only lost 1 or 2 games throughout his tenure as a coach at Notre Dame. This is a game that if you lose, you can't lose like you did in the ACC championship game.
Definitely not.
You know, you got to keep it within a touchdown or at least 11 points. If you lose big, Brian Kelly, Notre Dame, time to part ways. Time to get a coach in there because you got the talent. You got the talent to beat Alabama.
So you do believe that going into this game, that Notre Dame does have the ability to do it?
Yeah, I think that they have the ability to hang with Alabama, and they have the ability to capitalize on mistakes. Notre Dame is a very disciplined team. What hurt them in the ACC championship game was they were undisciplined. You had 3 shots, first and goal, and you come away with just a field goal. You miss a field goal. That is not characteristic of a Notre Dame team. You know, they normally walk away with touchdowns, or they're going to make the field goal. This is a game that you got to just, can you pick up your team and go, look, let's dust off that ACC championship. Let's focus on going after the national championship.
Okay.
And to do that, we got to get through Alabama, who we don't like because they overtook us in total of national championships.
So obviously they have what it takes. They made it this far. They've gotten to the Rose Bowl to even get a shot at Alabama. Without holding anything back, what is it that you believe Notre Dame has to do, cannot go without doing to take home this title and go for the championship?
They have to make Matt Jones uncomfortable in the pocket. They have to shut down the run. Those are your 2 big keys right there for the Notre Dame defense. And the Notre Dame defense, they had a player on the defense, their defensive lineman, in the talk for the Heisman Trophy. You know, it's time for him to show why he was in the talk for the Heisman Trophy. He's got to knock Matt Jones on his ass. You know, this Notre Dame defense has got to make Matt Jones throw the ball. And they've got good cornerbacks and good safeties to take away that the Heisman Trophy wide receiver for Alabama, to take him out of the picture. You know, you got to stay disciplined, play smart ball. When you're playing a team like Alabama, you got to play smart ball. If you make a mistake, you got to look past that mistake and just go, okay, we got to try harder, dust off, and focus on what it is you got to do and execute.
So do you have a prediction for the outcome of this Rose Bowl?
You know, and you know, my heart is going to be Notre Dame to win. I'm going to be rooting for Notre Dame to win.
Of course.
But for some reason, Brian Kelly just has not proven to me that he can coach a big game. And that's where the difference is when this game is the coaching. Tommy Rees not being more creative to help his quarterback to make adjustments coming into his second half, like he showed in the ACC championship game. He tried playing the same schemes. You know, so I'm going to say Alabama is going to end up winning this game by 8 to 11 points.
Jay, what are your thoughts on the Rose Bowl?
My thoughts on the Rose Bowl right now is, you know, if I was Notre Dame, pray a lot. I think this is a David and Goliath matchup. I'm not taking nothing away. I mean, Notre Dame's got that talent. They got, good players on their team. I mean, Alabama's, the same thing, good talent. But I'm just telling you right now, Alabama is a semi-pro team just about. I mean, they put up 50, sometimes 60 points, and they did that against SEC teams this year. And I mean, Notre Dame, they finally got into the conference and everything, but I mean, besides Clemson, I mean, you played a FSU team that was down. Didn't get to play a Miami team. I mean, a North Carolina team, they were number 5 at one point in the nation. They were iffy. I mean, this Alabama team is, I mean, really from head to toe, what do you do? And then, like you said, they'll take away the Heisman Trophy receiver, but what about the other receiver that could also probably be a Heisman Trophy? And then if you, not the receivers, and then, you don't stop the running game, not only do you have Harris, then you got that other running back. I mean, what do you do? How do you? I'm sorry. I mean, if I was Notre Dame right now, this is a David Goliath matchup. I'm not saying that Notre Dame can't win it. Hey, on any given day, anything can happen. It's college football. It's not like the pros. I'm sorry. I think Alabama wins this by at least 20 points, and it's not just because I mean, when I saw whenever Notre Dame had Clemson with backups in there for Clemson, good game. They did what they had to do. Obviously, like what Chad said earlier, Trevor Lawrence was in there. He was a difference maker. But now, you got more than just Trevor Lawrence to deal with. You got basically a goddamn, semi-pro team.
But you got a quarterback at Notre Dame who's pro-ready. He's a leader. And this is a game that I would also put on Ian Book's shoulders. Show us why you've been a 4-year starter here at Notre Dame.
But
show us why you're probably a number 1 to number 2 drafted quarterback in the NFL.
Can he have a type of performance though, like whenever in the SEC championship game with Kyle Trask? Because we put everything on Trask's shoulders, and we only have 54 yards rushing. You guys cannot afford to have only 44 yards rushing against Alabama and expect to win there. I don't think. Ian Book, just like Kyle Trask, great quarterback. I think he's pro ready. I don't think it can all be just about the quarterback though, and I think that's another thing too that hurt Florida and it's probably going to hurt you if you cannot establish a good running game. And once again, your defense, you got to be like Mr. Perfect and everything. And what is it? Perfect.
Aside from the matchup itself, earlier when you and I were talking, you were actually giving me a couple interesting facts about this particular Rose Bowl and where it's being played.
Oh, yes, the Rose Bowl this year is not being played in Pasadena due to the COVID and California being a bunch of pussies out there not being able to touch anybody. God forbid you kiss your wife goodnight, man, out there in L.A. But no, the last time the Rose Bowl was not played in Pasadena, California, was right after Pearl Harbor attack in 1941. The game was played in 1942, yes, but it was not played in Pasadena. It was played in Washington, D.C. Most people don't know that. So this is the first time in almost 70-something years that the Rose Bowl is not being played in Pasadena.
And so what city is going to be bringing us the Rose Bowl this year?
It's going to be played in AT&T, that shitty Cowboys stadium at the House of Jerry. I hope that dang thing crumbles on Jerry's head one day. Oh, did I say it? I'm sorry. Sorry, Jerry. I mean, it's playing in AT&T Stadium, which is out there in Dallas. And, at the end of the day, this is the game 1. It's college football playoff. I want to see a good game at the end of the day, but I just, let's just see what happens.
All right. Okay, so we covered the championship games, the Heisman Trophy, the Rose Bowl. Now on to the Sugar Bowl. Clemson versus Ohio State. Jay, take the lead on this one for us.
Go Tigers, go Tigers, go Tigers. Fuck the Buckeyes. OSU, you want to dot your I? Here's the I right there. Remember back in 2006, whenever, I don't know, you were playing this team called Florida and you didn't give us much of a chance? Well, I'm giving you nothing much of a chance. Clemson's going to kick your ass. Roll Clemson.
I'm with the Dabo Swinney team. This is going to be a repeat of last year.
Yeah, right?
And I think it's going to be worse than last year. I think Dabo Swinney's team is really going to put it on Ohio State's ass. Ohio State, you're finally playing a real team.
Especially if Trevor Lawrence wins the Heisman Trophy, he's going to show you Ohio State why he's the Heisman Trophy winner. Go back to Columbus, take a little 10 o'clock curfew, and, shove it up your ass.
Yeah.
Go Big Blue also next year when you play him.
Here's a team that Ohio State should not be even mentioned if you're going to suspend the Pac-12, who started around the same time as the Big Ten from being able to be in the college football playoffs, then you should have done the same thing here. Ohio State, you should not be playing here. Oklahoma should be playing here. And better yet, Oklahoma, you guys won your championship game, but what about that team from Cincinnati?
The other Ohio team, you know what I'm saying? Undefeated. I mean, they're undefeated.
10-0.
Yeah, 10-0 or something like that.
10-0.
Oh, it's Ohio State.
10-0.
Sorry.
See, my whole thing, me and my brother have talked about this time and time again. NCAA, time for your fucking wake-up call on this whole shit.
Really?
Get away from the BCS. Yeah. It's bullshit. The ranking is bullshit. Just because you guys show favoritism. Take some of these teams, and if you were to make them play other conferences, would these teams still be ranked in the top ranks that you give them? We don't know, because you're too afraid to do it all the time. Yeah, every once in a while you give us a little taste, a little, teaser at the beginning of the season, and you might see an Alabama, ranked number 1, and versus Oregon, who might be ranked number 2 this season because they had such a great recruitment class at the first game of the season, right out the gate. 2 teams that are rusty right now.
The ranking at the beginning of the season is for the birds.
The ranking period should be thrown out. You have got 8 conferences.
Your top 5 conferences, and then we get 3 Mickey Mouse conferences. I don't care what the AAC, the Mountain West. I mean, these kids play good ball. I mean, there's your top 8 teams, and your top 4 teams. There's your, number 1 for 4. Those are your home teams that week. Your bottom 4, those are your, that's those top 4 get home playoff games.
So what I'm hearing here is actually what both you guys are agreeing on is we need a total restructuring when it comes to college ball.
We need to add 4 more teams, which are also conference championships. That way, all the 5 major conferences, because even one of the major conferences, they get ousted out.
Yeah.
What if what I'm saying? What if you have a 12-0 Florida team, a 12-0 Michigan team, and a 12-0 USC team at the end of the season? Okay, and they all finish 13-0. Who's going to be number 1 and number 2? And that team is also in a powerhouse conference. They're ousted out. They're not in there.
But what we have seen, we can't say we've seen. And the way you do it, when you take away, you take away the whole ranking, number 1 through 25. We don't give a shit about that.
No.
Because obviously nobody, the BCS doesn't even give a shit about. We've seen it 2 years in a row with UCF. And UCF went and beat an SEC team.
An Auburn team in the Peach Bowl, and almost beat a Joe Burrow's LSU team the year before Joe Burrow scored 66 touchdowns last year. Hello, people. Quit smoking dope, and if you are smoking some dope, give me some of that shit, because it's a lot better than what I've got.
The way to do it is you look at, if say like you have all 8 teams finish undefeated, that win their conference championships. Then you go by the quality of wins. Did they blow out their opponents? Who had the most blowouts? Who won by a bigger margin of victory? And that's how you break it down, by the average margin of victory of who's number 1 to number 8 at that point. And then guess what? You're gonna have a fair. You got to have a fair road to championship.
Like March Madness in basketball for college basketball.
Because you mean to tell me you got a UCF team that went 2 years undefeated.
25-0. 25-0. They didn't even play for the national.
And they didn't even get a chance to even sniff at the national championship. But they are eligible to win the national championship. So you're telling these kids, you're eligible to win, but because you don't play nobody, because, our conference is just really getting started, but we got good players.
Good
teams, but we're not the SEC. We're not the ACC. We're not the Big Ten. We're not the Pac-12. So you could go undefeated, win your championship, but you'll be sitting somewhere at number 7, number 9 when you do that. And
yeah.
And
here you go. And then Music City Bowl. There you go. After all your hard work all year long, now you go Music City. Whoop you do.
But then you get to watch maybe 2 SEC teams or 2 ACC teams have a chance to play for the national title. You got an ACC team or SEC team that didn't even win their damn championship game get to play for the national title when you went undefeated? NCAA, can you wake the fuck up and just give us what we want? An 8-team playoff. And we want it with the champions. And guess what? It will force people like Notre Dame to finally go ahead and say, this is the conference we're going to be in because this is what would make it fair. If everybody else is a champion, then we don't want to be said, oh, well, it's just because you're Notre Dame that y'all went undefeated, so you have to be put in there. No. I'm a Notre Dame fan. I don't want anything handed to me. I want to be able to sit there and say, no, you didn't hand us shit. We beat your ass to get here and won. So it's time to go ahead. Notre Dame, either stick with the ACC or jump into the Big Ten.
Yeah,
those are the two conferences you need to look at. Or go ahead and say, okay, we tried the ACC. We ran all over them except for Clemson. We want a little bit more of a challenge. Let's go to the SEC.
Really start praying then.
I think that's what needs to happen. These independent teams will end up having to join conferences. I
think so too. I agree with you.
And it'll make college football that much better and much more fun to watch.
Because what hurts these independent schools at the end of the day is them not being in a conference. All these conferences, they have those conference championships, and independents like Notre Dame, even though if they would have gone undefeated this year, not playing that extra game could have hurt them. Even going undefeated, it does hurt them. It does hurt them. The thing for Notre Dame is, I think, also big TV revenue. That does help them. But they need to get into a conference. I'm with you. Either the ACC, Big Ten. Hey, if you want to come down to the SEC, Notre Dame, come on down. We'll gladly invite you. I just think all the independents need to go to the conference.
And I think it would spread the recruiting out.
Yes.
It seems like we're all on the same page in our predictions for those two top bowl games. Were there any other bowl games that stuck out to you in particular?
Well, obviously, the Cotton Bowl. My lovely Florida Gator team here playing on the Oklahoma Sooners. The last time we played Oklahoma, we beat them 24-14 down there in the Orange Bowl for the national championship, 2008, Tim Tebow and company. This is all going to come once again down to can Florida stop the run? Oklahoma's got some big offensive linemen. Can Florida stop the run? That's going to be the key. I think Florida can put up 40 points against Oklahoma.
But can Oklahoma stop Florida's offense?
The way you stop Florida's offense is simply this: you keep them off the field. That's the whole thing. So, if Oklahoma wants to stop Florida's offense, guess what? Keep drives alive, which they can do against our mediocre defense.
I don't know. I'm not a Florida fan. Everybody knows I'm definitely
10-4 on that one. No multiple.
But I would have to say I like Florida against Oklahoma. I like Florida for the win.
Yeah, I'm not saying they're going to win. I'm just saying if we can't stop Oklahoma, we are in trouble if Kyle Trask is on the sideline.
Yes, but I see Florida bringing home the win in the Cotton Bowl, which is going to do great for Florida in the offseason, in their recruiting, because they could sit there and turn around and say, look, come to us, and you will be part of the team that knocks Alabama off their high horse.
Exactly.
Because we're ready to play against Alabama. We're just missing a couple key pieces. The only team in college that I probably would say I hate the most is Alabama, the Crimson Tide. I don't know where the fuck y'all get an elephant for a mascot. And when I think of a Crimson Tide, I think of a lady's menstrual cycle that she gets once a month. That's the only Crimson Tide I could think of that could be coming around Alabama.
I don't get it. They have a mascot as an elephant, but yet whenever you go to Crimson Tide games, they always have them like Tide boxes on a stick. What is going on in Alabama and everything? I know you sit there and do things with your cousins.
It's a circus college, man. It's the Ringling Brothers college.
And, with no fear whatsoever of alienating or upsetting anybody, the only thing worse than the Roll Tide are Roll Tide fans.
And if you're Forrest Gump and everything, it was roll over.
All right, guys. So you've heard these guys review the championship games that took place. You've heard their predictions for the Heisman Trophy. You've heard them give you their predictions on the upcoming bowl games. They definitely will be back next week for more. We want to thank you for joining us on our first episode of Two Brothers Talk Sports. You guys have anything you'd like to say to our viewers before we sign out?
Yes, and we do have another video that's going to drop tomorrow. We're doing 2 videos this week. This one, the first one was, of course, about college football because it's very important to what happened this past Saturday, what's coming up. And our second video is going to be talking about last week's NFL games and this week's coming up NFL games. And also, guys, hold on, Jay, you got anything you want to say before?
I just want to say one more time, Ohio State sucks.
All right, I agree with that. Ohio State, you suck. Buckeye, you're a fucking nut. You know,
literally.
But thank you guys for watching us. Like I said at the beginning, make sure you pound that like button, subscribe, tell your friends, share, and also, guys, join me on my other YouTube channel where I go out and do some paranormal investigating with me and my wife and our buddy Grady Styles, aka Lobster Boy, at CHP Paranormal Investigations, guys. You'll enjoy it if you like the paranormal stuff. Thank you for me and my brother for joining us, and we'll see you guys next time.
Be safe.